Hello guys, welcome to week 2 of Python with Velvi. So just to give you a quick recap, so last week we saw about like introduction to Python, its installation, getting introduced to numbers like integers, float, and also like complex number, and then like basic operators in Python. How do you do that, especially through the Jupyter notebook, and then like some advantages of the Jupyter notebook to end up. So today what I want to focus is strings. Okay, so it's just kind of like the next real important data type that's in Python. So let's get started. So for this week what I did was like I just prepared some I just prepared the Jupyter notebook in advance so that it's easier for both of us. So let me just open it. Oops, just okay. Till it opens, like I just want to say about Python is that Python seems to be a pretty simple language to learn, but the difficulty arises when you learn uh, almost everything like strings, numbers, lists, tuples, dictionaries, sets. So at later some point of time, you might feel confused like what to apply for what, when to use what, those kind of things. Okay. So the best way to make sure you don't get stuck up in Python is through practice. Okay. So make sure that you're always constantly practicing, like get those subtle details. I think those are the most important things with respect to Python. Okay. So we have the Jupyter notebook right here. So let me just open it. Okay. So let's get started. So just to give a overall idea about what strings are just kind of like sequence of characters. Okay, you know what a character is. Anything that is in your keyboard is a character. Okay, any alphabet or any digit or any special character, all can be a character. Okay, so a sequence of set of characters can be termed a string. Okay, so in Python, how do you represent a string? So this is just an example of how you would represent a string. Okay, so here I just have a name underscore one variable which has a value h bar. It's just a name. Okay, so in Python what you have is like you just have them in a single code. This is one way to do it. Okay, so if you just run it, okay, it's quite simple. Okay, and then in Python you could have strings in double quotes as well, just like this. So this is another way in which you could uh, create strings in Python. Okay, so as you could see, like both means the same. Okay, so we did learn this last week, right? So I'm just comparing these two variables, and it's true. This is because both of them are strings. Just because he used a single quote or a double quote, it doesn't matter with respect to Python. Okay, so this is the most simplest way to declare a string in Python. So you could check its type just by doing the type of variable name, and you could see str represents string. Okay, so the same birth. Okay, quite simple, right? So this is how you just represent a simple string in Python. So as you could see here, it has just alphabets. Okay, but string could be much more complex, like even it could have like numbers, complex numbers, etc., etc. But once you have those numbers within a code, it's going to be of type string. Okay, let's just see a few examples regarding that. Okay, so I have like a equal to apple right here, and then checking its type is string. Okay, so now what I do is like a is equal to 34.3, and then type of a, it's going to be float. We just tried this last week, right? So now I take the same 34.3 and then have it in a double quotes. Okay, so now this is string. This is string because it is within the double quotes structure. Okay, so make sure you don't forget this. Anything within a quote is always a string in Python, whatever it might be. Okay, it might be an integer, it might be a string, it might be a dictionary, it might be a tuple, it might be a list, whatever. Okay, but once you have them the double quotes or a single quote, it's always going to be of type string. Please remember this. Please make a note of this point. Okay. So and then like the same 34.3, I just uh, did this in a single quote thing, and then it's just the same thing. And then like just like for numbers, we have zero, right? Zero represents nothing or like false in terms of Boolean, right? So similarly, an empty string represents nothing, right? So this is just an example of an empty string. How you create one? Just have the double quotes without nothing, okay? String. And then how do you check whether something is empty or not? You just do the bool of that particular object, okay? So since it's an empty string, you could see like bool of that particular object A returns as false. Let's say if it isn't an empty string, just like the name one that we had here. So if I just do bool of name one, so it's going to be true because name one string ain't empty. Okay, I hope you got that. I hope everything is clear as of now. We just saw like how to declare strings and then like how to test whether a given object is string or not. Okay, so simple as of now. Okay, so let's just go ahead. So before going ahead, I just want to say it's like you have both single quote and double quote corresponding to string in Python. So which one to use? It's totally up to you, okay? But what I would recommend is just make sure to have a consistency. If you're using single quote frequently, make sure you stick with single quote throughout your code or throughout your career as well. If you prefer double quotes, just go with that. My personal preference is using the double quotes. Don't ask why. It's just me, okay? So now just going ahead, like let's say for example in English we have words such as like I can't do this, like I wouldn't do this. So you have that can't, wouldn't, these have an inbuilt single quote, right? So how do you represent these type of strings in Python? So we're gonna see that. So this is why you need to know something or understand like escape characters. So let's say for example, uh, I have this sentence called I can't do this. So can't has a single quote in it. So what you could do is like have have the string in a double quote so that like a single quote doesn't cause any problem. So now the single quote inside the string is kind of like a character. It doesn't represent the syntax of a string. Okay, so that's how it works. So I can't do this in double quotes. Having a single quote isn't a problem. So it just gives us results. Okay, so but let's say for example if I just use single quotes throughout the string structure, so I have is like the same string I can't do this but everything in single quotes right now. So you could see like here like I can't do this, so it kind of like becomes like a broken string, right? So Python thinks I can is a string alone, okay, and then whatever we have is some kind of like a crap, okay. So Python doesn't take this as a string and then it just throws an error. So you could see like Python throws a syntax error right here, okay, syntax error, invalid syntax, pointing right here. We will see these kind of errors like later during the video series, and then we'll see how to handle these errors as well. But please make a note here, like you can't use single quotes within a single quotes string structure. So in order to avoid this particular situation, let's say for example, you might have double quotes, single quotes, everything in a string as well. So in those type of situation, what would you do? So that's why you need to escape the quotes that you're using inside your string. Okay. So the same sentence as we have here, but what I have did here is like I just escaped the single quote, as you could see here, like I can, and then like instead of just doing this, you could see the variation color right now. I just escape this single quote here so that like Python doesn't kind of like use that single quote as a syntax one, rather than it just make sure like to use that single quote as a string as a character itself. So this works totally fine. Okay, so similar way you could just do the double quotes as well. Okay, so I'm just using for an example here. So it's going to be like grammatically wrong. So as you can see, like if you have been using like inconsistent double quotes, it's going to throw error. So now it doesn't throw error. It just kind of like considers that quote as a string as well. Okay, because I just escaped it. So like, what are these escape characters? Like you could just learn about these escape characters. Like you could just type in Google. So like /n/r. I would recommend these. See, you just have a Wikipedia page here. I don't know where you would have. Okay, you see here, right? So these are the various escape characters. I think most of the things that you see here applies to Python as well. Okay, whenever you want to use a /n, it's going to represent a new line. A /t is going to represent a tab space in Python. So we will see how to operate with all those kind of characters as we go on. Okay, but make sure you have a clear understanding till what we discussed right now. Okay, so we have an idea like how to declare a string, when to use double quotes, when to use single quotes, all those kind of stuff. Okay, so and then like going ahead, we'll see like few string operations. So first operation that I want to discuss is the concatenation. So let's say for example 5 plus 5, given that both 5 are of type integer, it's just going to give us the value 10, right? So that's how the plus operator, the addition operator works on strings or numbers. But the same addition or plus operator works in a different way with respect to strings. Okay, so here you could see like I just did a Python plus string space, okay, plus programming. So this gives us Python programming. So it just concatenated the strings that we have. So that's the purpose of addition operator with respect to strings. Okay, it helps us to concatenate strings. Okay, hope so it's clear. So if you're just like if you just want to simplify the this particular statement, what you could just do is like combine the space with the Python string, or either you could do this way as well, and then you have the same result. Okay, so this is how we concatenate strings in Python. This is one of the way though. Okay, so now let's say for example you just have like two string literals. String literal means like that particular string hasn't been assigned to any variable at all. Okay, so here I just have like Python, a separate string, programming, a separate string, and I don't have any plus operator in between them, but still Python concatenates these two things. Okay, you can see like still I get like Python programming as a new string. This is because like when you have the string literals, Python automatically does the concatenation. Okay, remember this works only for string literals. It doesn't work for variables. Okay, to illustrate that, I have two variables here, str underscore a, str underscore b, Python and programming. And I just do like str a plus str b. Oops, I have to run this. Okay, and then I get the output as Python space programming. But I just try to do this particular way, like the literal way that I did here, and it's going to throw in error, syntax error, because syntactically this is totally wrong. Okay, so you can't do this for variables. It works only for string literals. Okay, and then like other thing that I want to say is like now we saw about like how to add two numbers, how the plus operator works with two strings, but how does a plus operator work with a string and an integer or a string and a number? Okay, Python again throws an error in this case because it isn't compatible. Okay, because Python really doesn't know how to handle this particular case. That's why it throws an error. Type error means like there is an error regarding the type. Okay, so the type that we fed in here is like of type string and type integer. So both of them aren't compatible with respect to the plus operator. Okay, I hope so it's clear as of now. But is there a way to kind of like make sure the plus operator works on both string and numbers? Yes, we could make sure it works. once we hit classes, object-oriented programming, we will see like how to customize operators like operator overloading, all those kind of stuff. Okay, so that's really a later part of the course. But as of now, just remember like plus doesn't work the same way as it works with just numbers and just strings. Okay, so the other operator, the multiplication. Okay, so when you multiply a string and string, it doesn't work. Okay, but when you multiply a string and an integer, the string is kind of like replicated n number of times. Okay, so where n corresponds to the integer that you input. Okay, what I have here is like apple space multiplied by 5. So you could see like apple is being kind of like printed 5 times here. Okay, so simple, right? So similarly, this works with a variable as well, not okay. So str underscore a multiplied by 5 gives me like python, 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 python. Okay, this is just another operator that you could do with respect to strings. Hope so it's clear. Okay, so other important thing that you need to really know about strings is like finding the length of a given particular string. This isn't possible with integers, right? You can't really have a what's the length of 5. 5 can be length, but 5 you don't have length for 5 itself unless it's a string. Okay, so length of apple returns as 5, so we just use the inbuilt length function. So because like apple has 5 characters, 1 2 3 4 5, and then length of apple space plus vanilla. So now I just combine like the string concatenation inside the length function. It gives us 13. So simple, right? So I hope like everything is clear as of now. So going ahead, I just want to like do like a couple of examples related to the concatenation itself. So let me just show you this. Okay, 4 plus 9 is 13. Okay, this is 49 because 4 and 9 are separate strings. Okay, you could see like 4 and 9 are just combined, concatenated. Here 4 plus 9, they have been added as an integer. Okay, just to make things clear. So let's go ahead. So another important thing that you really need to know about strings is indexing and slicing. Okay, so I just made a quick note about indexing. So let's have an understanding about like what really indexing is in Python. So let's say for example I have a variable named fruit, and then its value is apple. Okay, so as we started the video, like string is just kind of like a sequence of characters. So I'm just representing the string apple like this. Okay, A, P, P, L, E. And then like indexing in Python starts from 0. So in most of the computer science, everything that you see like it doesn't start with 1, it starts with 0. Okay, so now the first character A, you could like just like map it with the integer 0. Okay, so you just increment 1 for each character from there on. So A corresponds to 0, P corresponds to 1, the next P corresponds to 2, L corresponds to 3, and E corresponds to 4. Okay, so this is just like how you index the characters in your string. Okay, so in Python, like okay, we'll come back to the backward indexing later. Okay, so now what you have is like you have like each character in your string mapped to a particular integer value. So now let's say for example you want to access a particular character in your string, you just do like fruit, the variable name, and then like the square bracket, and then you just input the index value in here. Okay, so this corresponds to give me access to the 0th index of this particular string fruit. This is A because A corresponds to 0. That's the beginning of the string. Okay, and then fruit of 4 gives E. This is because you can see like 4 corresponds to E here, or like E corresponds to 4. Okay, quite simple. This is forward indexing in Python. So this is how we access any particular character in a string using Python. So Python does support like backward indexing as well. Okay, or you could call it kind of like a negative indexing. So just like we started from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the last integer is now going to be like -1. Okay, so that's how you start. -0 doesn't exist, so that's the reason you start with -1. I think it's an obvious reason why they started with -1. So now the last character is being mapped to -1, and then as you decrease, you just kind of like decrease by value of 1. So E corresponds to -1, now L corresponds to -2, P corresponds to -3, the following P corresponds to -4, and then A corresponds to -5. Okay, so simple how to map characters to index values in Python. I hope it's clear now. Okay, so now fruit of 0 and fruit of 4, we just saw examples of that. Similarly, like if I just try to do fruit of -1, it's going to give me E, and fruit of -5 is going to give me A. Okay, I think it's simple. Okay, so now let's do a few examples related to indexing. So I just have the same variable fruit in here, fruit equals apple in quotes, and then like fruit of 0 corresponds to A, and then fruit of 1 corresponds to P, fruit of 2 again corresponds to P, the following, this particular P, fruit of 3 corresponds to L, and fruit of 4 corresponds to E. So simple, right? So now what I try to do is like I just try to do fruit of 5. Okay, so 5 corresponds to the sixth character of the string, right? Because 0 corresponds to the first, 1 corresponds to the second. So similarly, like 5 corresponds to 5 plus 1, okay, character in a string. But my string apple has only 5 characters, so there isn't any sixth character in my string. So that's the reason why Python throws me an index error string index out of range. So since that index that you want to access isn't available, Python throws an index error. Okay, so simple, right? So going ahead, let's just do the negative indexing as well. So fruit of -1 is going to correspond to the last character, which is E in apple. Okay, so we have E here, and then fruit of -2 corresponds to L, and then like -3 corresponds to P, -4 corresponds to P, and -5 corresponds to A. So similarly, I try to access fruit of -6. Python again throws an error because there are only 5 characters in my string and there isn't a sixth character. And then, okay, so what you're trying to really access with -6 is you're just trying to go something beyond this direction on the left hand side of the string. Okay, so it isn't available, so it's the same reason Python throws an error. Okay, I hope indexing is clear right now. So similarly, oops, sorry for that. So similarly, let's say for example, I have a string of numbers. Okay, 4, 3, 4, 5. The same thing can be applied here. Okay, A of 0 corresponds to 3. Okay, so the reason I do with like a string of integers as well, because like I don't want you to get confused. Okay, it can be like one can easily misinterpret, okay, that's 3, 4, 5, and then like A of 0 should give me an error because those are integer. Never, never, ever make this mistake. Okay, if anything is inside a code, it's always string. Okay, whatever it is, it's always a string. Please make a note of this. I want to stress this throughout this video because I don't want you to get confused in the first place. Okay, because this is one particular like maybe a pitfall that most of the students fall into while they learn Python. Okay, so never ever make that mistake. I repeat this again. I might be boring, but still I want to repeat it. Anything inside a string is always, sorry, anything inside a quote is always a string. It might be an integer, it might be a float, whatever, whatever. If it's inside a string, if it's inside a quote, it's always a string. Okay. So another important concept that I wanna speak with respect to strings is slicing. Okay. So we just saw like with respect to indexing, how to access a particular value or a particular character in your string. But let's say for example, You just want to access a set of characters from your string. How do you do that? So that's where the concept of slicing comes in. Okay. So as the name suggests, it's just like slicing. Okay. You just want to slice out a particular portion of a string. That's what slicing literally means, right? So the same concept here. So I just have the same variable fruit with the value of apple and then the same representation as you see here. So the syntax of slicing is just an extension of how do you how to how do you like do the index operation. Okay. So the syntax is simple. You just have the variable name and then you have like two colons where the second colon is optional. Okay, we will see how to use that. And then like this particular region corresponds to the start index. Okay, and then like this particular thing corresponds to the end index, and then finally you have the step. Okay, so let's say for example fruit of 0 colon 2 gives me like ap. So what it literally does is it starts at 0, okay, and it goes till 2. But the thing here about Python is like it doesn't like fetch the end index character. It just goes till end index minus 1. Okay. So the thing here is like we just fed like fruit of 0 colon 2. So it starts at 0. Okay. 0 goes next character 1 and then like goes next 2. But the end index I have is 2. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So it stops at 1. So we just have AP. Okay. And then I just want to cover this particular case in the Jupyter notebook. Okay. So let's go here. So I just have the string. And then like, as you can see, like I just do this particular syntax here, right here. So it just returns everything. So what it means is like, I haven't like mentioned the start index. So that means like it starts from the beginning. Okay. So similarly, I haven't like mentioned the end index as well. So what it does is like it just goes till the end, like it just fetches all the characters. And then like I haven't mentioned the step as well. Okay, so it just like increments by 1. Okay, so the same thing can be done. So you just see the equivalent of the above one. Okay, right here. So the start index is 0 and then length of root is 5. So and then finally I just have the colon 1 which just corresponds to the incrementing value, like the step, like how you want to traverse through the string. Okay, so it just gives me the same apple. Now let's say for example if I just want to fetch the first two characters, so as we said in the PDF, okay, you just do like 0 colon 2. It's just the same. Okay, so a is the 0th character and it just goes till 2 minus 1, the end index minus 1, so which is 1 right here. So AP is there. Okay, so now let's just use this step thing. Okay, so what exactly it does. So let's say for example I just do like this one, right? So it means just like fetch all the characters with step 1 start index 0 and end index the length of string. Okay, so I just leave these two things empty because like let me just take all the characters into consideration and then I just make the step as 2. Okay, so what literally it's gonna do is like as you could see here, like APPLE with a step of 2, it starts at 0, that is the A. Okay, and then like instead of going to this particular character P here, it jumps to the P right here because the step value is 2. Okay, so you could see like it just has a step 2 and it skips L and then like goes to E. So that's why you see ape. Okay, so quite simple, right? So if I just do step of 3, so what it's gonna do is like it's just gonna go in steps of 3. So AL. Okay, so step 2 is this, step 3 is this, right? So, and then like after L, there isn't any character where the Python could literally go, right? So that's why it just like returns AL. So now, let's say for example, with respect to indexing, if I just input an index that's beyond the range of the string, it throws me an error. But that isn't the case with respect to slicing, okay? So let me illustrate to you. So I start at 0, okay, and then I go to the 100. So that means like I want to start at the first character and go till the ninth character, right? But I don't have a 99th character in the string apple, but Python still returns me whatever it fetches, okay? It doesn't throw me an error, but with respect to indexing, Python throwed an error. With respect to slicing, it doesn't throw an error, okay? So this is how Python works, like, because like slicing is just kind of like you just, it already sliced, right? So there is something to Python to return, right? So like that's the reason why slicing doesn't return an error, but indexing does return an error. Okay, now the obvious question would be like, what if both the index aren't in the range? Okay, so I just want to start at the 50th character and go to the 100th character. Still, Python doesn't return an error with respect to slicing because Python doesn't have anything to slice in that particular range that you fed in. Okay, so it returns an empty string rather than throwing an error. Okay, please remember this. Okay, slicing never throws an error. Okay, so going ahead, like you could just use slicing with negative indexing as well. So let's say for example, I want to fetch all the characters, but I use, okay, so now if I use negative indexing here, something interesting is going to happen. For the step I just inputted -1, Python returns an empty string. So this is because, let me go to the PDF. Okay, so you have the string apple. Okay, you want to start at 0 and go till the end with a step of -1. So -1 corresponds to Python going in this direction towards the left, right? So left side of A, you don't have anything left, right? So that's why Python returns an empty string, not any possible values that it would slice. Okay, so remember that a step of positive value always means going from left to right. A step of negative value means like going from right to left. Okay, so now when does the negative indexing really is useful? Okay, so let me illustrate to you this. I just do the same thing, and then now I start at -1. Okay, so starting from -1, I wanna like I just wanna make sure I just go to the most left side character possible. So in this case, it's gonna be A, right? So I could either input nothing, okay, or I could input -6, okay, because the end index has to be like one beyond, right? And then I use a step of -1. So you could see like Python just kind of like just like it just reversed the string. Okay, so it just gave me like ELPPA instead of APPLE. Okay, so what really happens here is like starting at -1. Okay, so Python starts here, and then I want to go to -6. Okay, which is something here. So because like end index doesn't take the literal thing here, so you go to here, and then like I want to step off -1. That means like go from right to left. So that's why like Python inputs like ELPPA. So that's what you have here. Okay, so I hope like it's kind of like clear till what we spoke with respect to slicing. I know it can be a bit confusing, okay, but I just want to make sure to give my best to make sure you understand this concept. Okay, so if you have any questions, make sure you comment regarding this. Keep practicing with respect to slicing and indexing, because in terms of just slicing out simple parts or simple tokens, it's going to be really easy, but you just need to make sure you understand the subtle things that you could do with Python, right? So like how to use the negative indexing, how to combine both the positive and the negative indexing as well. I'll show you an example. So the same thing above can be done like this. Okay, so let's say I want to start here. I just want to fetch like ELP. Okay, so here I just need to make sure I go to -4 then. Okay, so instead of like using -4 here, I could just use 1. So we just, let me do it in a separate cell. Okay, so both of them just returns the same results, because the -4 here and the +1 here corresponds to the same index, right, with respect to this particular string fruit. So make sure you practice all this. But I would say is like try to keep things as simple as possible. When you require to use negative indexing, it can be really useful as well. So make sure you learn them. So I just want to speak more about index slicing now. So if you have any questions, make sure you comment them below. I'll make sure I'll answer them. Maybe if you want a better explanation, I could just make a separate video as well. But feel free to ask anything you want. Okay. So now let me just get you started with the basic inbuilt functions that you inbuilt methods that you could do with objects in Python. Okay, so last week we saw about numbers, right? So you could have basic methods with numbers as well, but I'll cover those like sometime later. I just want to get you started with like simple methods of string. Okay, so when you just do like dir, the inbuilt function of a particular object, you could see something listed like this. So all these are methods that are possible with string in this case. Okay, so you can see like there are so many, right? So I don't want to cover all of them right now, because like few of them requires you to know other things such as like list, dictionaries, those kind of stuff. So once I cover those, the basic data structures, list, tuples, dictionary sets, I will make sure I will do all the inbuilt methods, sorry, all the methods for all possible objects like numbers, strings, okay, list, tuples, dictionaries, and so on. Okay, so here I just want to do a few things. So the apple that we have is in lowercase, right? So let's say I just want to convert to an uppercase thing. What you do is like just the fruit variable name dot. Okay, so dot is where like how you access a method for a given object. Okay, fruit dot, you could just do tab when you're in Jupyter Notebook. So it just lists out all the possible methods. In this case, what I want is upper. Okay, and then you just do the parentheses, because that's how we call a method or a function. Okay, and then Python converts it to an uppercase just like this. Okay, so simple, nothing, right? So now if I just again access the variable fruit, Python just returns them in lowercase. This is because fruit.upper creates the uppercase variable uppercase value, but in order to use that again, you need to assign that to a variable, right? So that's where I just write this command. I just do like fruit equal fruit.upper. So now if I just try to access fruit, it's going to be of uppercase. So if I just try to convert to lowercase, now it's lowercase again, just like how we convert to upper to lower. Okay, simple thing. Let's say for example you want to replace a particular character with another character. So what you just do is like you just use the replace method. So fruit dot replace the character that you want to replace, and then the character that you want to be filled with. Okay, so here I want to replace p with b, and then Python just makes this able. Okay, So the replace method also takes an additional argument, the count as well, okay? So this corresponds to like how many characters do you want to replace. So here I just inputted 1. That means like it just replaces one P with B. That is the P that it sees is first, okay? So A P P L E becomes A B P L E. Okay, quite simple, right? So similarly, you could do count with respect to Python. So I just do like fruit dot count of P, Python returns true, 2. Okay, sorry. And then like similarly, there is something called as like find. So what find does is like we just input a substring and then Python returns the starting index of that particular substring. So in this case I just inputted L. Okay, so L is the third index, right? A P P L, L is third, right? So that's why Python returns 3. So similarly, you could if I just input PP, Python returns 1 because like PP the substring starts at index 1, right? So that's why you have positive 1 right here. So simple, right? So we just saw like few methods with of strings, and then like indexing, slicing, basic operations that you could do on strings like concatenation, multiplication with a number, finding length of a string, then like understanding like what are the various ways in which you could use string, right? A single quote, double quote. Oops, I just forgot one thing. So there is a way that in which you could do like a multiple line string as well. So let me quickly show you that. So what you just do is like instead of using a single quote or a double quote, you're gonna use like almost, okay. So you have like 3 double quotes or 3 single quotes followed by your string. Okay. So this works totally fine right here. So you could see like the new line just becomes like slash n here. So slash n corresponds to new line. Okay. So this is how you declare multi-line strings in Python. So you just use like these 3 double quotes or 3 single quotes followed by a string and then end it with 3 double quotes or 3 single quotes. Okay. So quite simple, right? Another way would be like just the traditional way of using apples, and then like what you do is like you just have do the slash. I think I haven't tried this for a long time. Let me see. Okay, so you just do like the slash at the end to to make sure like Python takes it at consider it as kind of like a multi-line, kind of like a string. Okay, but the thing here is like in this case like Python automatically had the value slash n, right? So that means like it's continuing in the next line. But here like Python doesn't consider it to be in the next line. Okay, it's just like a straight single string. Okay, with no new line character. Okay, you could see the difference between this and this. Okay, so I just want to end this video right here. Okay, so I'm sure like we just saw a few confusing things like with respect to slicing and indexing. I'm sure like with good amount of practice you'll be able to master the slicing and indexing in Python. It's quite simple, but please make sure you practice. Okay, so that's really important with respect to learning Python. You have to be constantly working on these kind of things. Okay, so if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll make sure to answer them. Next week I'll just like get started with like input output, and then like a bit of introduction to lists in Python. So from there on like things are gonna get complicated, but I'm sure like You're gonna rock. Okay. So thank you guys. If you feel you like this video, give a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Goodbye.